Live Prepared. The hidden call of leadership and faith. Pause for a moment and think of the people who must be ready at a moment's notice. The firefighter who bolts from his chair when the alarm sounds, the surgeon who steadies her hands in the chaos of an emergency, the pilot who scans every gauge as hundreds of lives depend on him. These roles demand readiness because lives are on the line. But here's the piercing question. Does your list include you? As a follower of Jesus and as a professional, you are called to live prepared. 1 Peter 3:15 sets the standard. But in your hearts set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. This isn't about being clever with words or memorizing speeches. It's about being so anchored in Christ that your life itself becomes the defense, so centered, so consistent, that people can't help but notice something different. Context creates clarity. Peter wasn't writing to a group of believers living in comfort. He was addressing scattered men and women who were misunderstood, slandered, and sometimes persecuted simply for following Christ. His words are not theoretical. They are survival instructions for people whose faith cost them socially, financially, and sometimes physically. That context matters. It tells us that hope isn't most visible when business is booming or when your career path is smooth. It shines when you're under pressure, when your company is restructuring, when you're navigating relational breakdowns, when you're facing criticism or uncertainty. Hope is not the absence of struggle. It's the presence of Christ in the middle of it. In other words, your greatest credibility comes not when everything goes right, but when everything goes wrong and you still reflect Christ. Words and patterns that shape the life. The phrase "be prepared" in the Greek carries the sense of readiness, of equipping yourself in advance. Think of it as keeping your professional toolkit sharpened, your heart postured, your mind aligned with truth. The word answer, apologia, isn't about winning arguments. It's about offering a clear, reasoned explanation for what people already see alive in you. Peter is very specific about how to show gentleness and respect. Why? Because if your defense of hope looks more like arrogance, aggression, or self-righteousness, you've missed the point. Your tone matters as much as your testimony. This echoes Paul in Colossians 4:6. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. The consistency is striking. The truth of Christ is always carried on the back of grace. The power of display before declaration. Here's the hard truth. We cannot expect others to take Jesus seriously if we ourselves are not living out his commands. If you want people to learn about God's love, you must show love. If you want them to understand compassion, you must be compassionate. If you want them to believe that generosity matters, you must steward your resources well. People rarely believe a message they cannot see embodied. This is as true in the office as it is in your home. Think of your workplace as a stage. Every action, how you handle stress, how you respond to criticism, how you celebrate wins or recover from losses, is either reinforcing or undermining the hope you claim to hold. You don't have to preach in board meetings, but your integrity, patience, and humility preach louder than words ever could. Your life becomes an act of worship that reveals his hope within you. That's the defense Peter envisioned, not a rehearsed speech, but a transformed life. The disarming power of love. Now here's the tension. People may not like who you are. They may not agree with what you believe. Some may even actively oppose you. But when your life is centered on loving people the way Jesus loved you, They won't be able to find a logical reason to hate you. Think about that in a business context. You can disagree with colleagues, hold different values, or even compete in the marketplace. But if your conduct is marked by gentleness and respect, you leave no room for legitimate accusation. Instead of enemies, you create curiosity. Instead of hostility, you create respect. And that curiosity opens the door for the most powerful question anyone can ask you. Why do you live this way? Anchoring leadership in hope. Great leaders, whether in faith or business, don't merely manage tasks. They shape culture. Culture is built not by slogans on the wall, but by daily behaviors. If you want a culture of trust, you must live trustworthily. If you want a culture of respect, you must show respect. If you want a culture of hope, you must carry hope in your demeanor, your words, and your decisions. This is where 1 Peter 3:15 cuts deep. Your leadership credibility is tied directly to your personal integrity. People follow leaders who live what they preach. They follow leaders who defend their hope not with force, but with evidence. So ask yourself, what do my coworkers, clients, or team members observe about my hope? Do they see panic and pressure or peace? Do they see ego or humility? Do they see someone scrambling for control or someone surrendered to Christ? Live prepared. The invitation is simple but costly. Leave prepared. Not in a frantic, overextended way, but in a rooted, centered way. Set apart Christ as Lord in your heart every morning before you step into the demands of life and business. Let your leadership, your relationships, and your daily interactions be infused with gentleness and respect. Because here's the truth, people don't just listen to what you say, they watch who you are. And when your life is marked by love, joy, and hope that only Christ can provide, your very presence becomes the most powerful apologetic. You won't have to force your defense of the faith. It will flow naturally because the evidence will already be written across your life. So live prepared. Live anchored. Live as one whose hope is impossible to ignore.